My comments on Senate Bill 1988 focus on two things. First, is the need for greater investment in rural Texas great enough to warrant the use of state funds to create an incentive program for rural economic development? And secondly, if that need is demonstrated, then what state agency has demonstrated the ability to effectively oversee this program? And if you'd indulge me, I'd like to give you just a few brief facts about rural Texas that I know you are certainly no stranger to these facts, Mr. Chairman, but at the same time, some here may not be. First, I think that it's important for everyone to know that Texas has the largest rural population of any state in the United States, and that the population of rural Texas is greater than the total population of 21 other states, and is greater than the combined population of the states of Alaska, North Dakota, Vermont, Wyoming, and the District of Columbia. Texas is a small-town state as well. 85% of the state's incorporated cities have fewer than 10,000 residents. Rural Texas covers approximately 80% of the state's total land area. And one thing we know in Texas is that we will never starve to death. Texas has almost twice as many farms as any other state and more than double the amount of land acreage in farms. But there are some troubling population trends that I know the Senate and House in Texas are both watching. You know, I'm 55 years old, and when I was born, Texas had a population of approximately 8 million people. Today, the state demographer estimates we have 24 million people. That's a 300% increase over the last 55 years. Back in 1950, we had a rural population of approximately 2.8 million people, and those folks made up a little over 37% of the state's population. Today, despite our tremendous statewide growth of 16 million people in the last 55 years, rural population has only increased 400,000 persons statewide, and today comprises only 14% of the total population in our state. Much of the rural segment in cities that are, or counties that are adjacent to urban centers is experiencing actually a loss of population and a deteriorating economic base. Conversely, although growing in population, the border regions endure living conditions that are well below state and national averages. Despite its large population, it is a disturbing fact that of all the growth we've experienced in the last 55 years, out of every 40 additional residents we have gained, only one of them lives in rural Texas. To better illustrate this, let me offer the example that a typical Greyhound bus seats 40 people. So for every new busload of residents that we have gained in the last 55 years, only one traveled to a rural destination, and the rest continued their journey to growing metropolitan areas, primarily Houston, Dallas-Fort Worth, San Antonio, and Austin, whose economies were flourishing and full of greater opportunities. So with regard to the question of whether rural economic development needs are great enough to warrant the use of state funds, I like what noted economist Ray Perryman in his 2002 report entitled Texas Our Texas said, when he noted that the public sector is sometimes the only effective means to achieve socially beneficial aims. The state does use public funds to provide or subsidize many functions, including transportation, municipal services, and education, because of their role as public goods, which cannot be efficiently provided by private interests. The one thing I can testify to today is that based on my experience over the last 35 years working with rural communities, is that the substantial lack of growth in rural areas compared to the state as a whole demonstrates that absent some assistance or incentives, private interests have and will continue to choose urban locations over rural ones. Additional state incentives are badly needed to lure capital investment and job creation to rural Texas. And lastly, on the second question of what state agencies should manage the Texas Rural Investment Fund, I would like to encourage you to place this program under the day-to-day promotion and operation of the Texas Department of Agriculture. We have a wonderful Department of Agriculture, one created over 100 years ago and operated through an elected Commission of Agriculture who was elected every 4 years. Of course, he's not here today, but the department is currently led by a truly dynamic commissioner, Todd Staples, who himself is a former member of the Texas Senate and I believe a respected former member. Commissioner Staples has sought and I believe earned the confidence of rural leaders across this state and has made rural investment and job creation his top priority. And the department has extensive proven experience in operating similar programs designed to promote private investment and economic development in Texas. One thing that was said when the bill was laid out, there was a reference made to the Texas Capital Fund. Since 2007, the department has awarded $14 million from this federally funded program, creating 1,500 new permanent jobs, over half of which went to low and moderate income persons. And the program has leveraged over $300 million in additional new capital investment. It should be pointed out, and there are there's a chart at the very end of my comments. It should be pointed out that Texas shouldn't count on the continued availability of economic development programs like the Texas Capital Fund that rely on federal support. These funds are part of the federal Community Development Block Grant Program. Since 2001, the state's annual allocation of CDBG funds has decreased by 20%, and the President's 2010 budget contains some troubling references to reforming the CDBG formula to better target distressed communities. And I'm concerned that very well could be code that would further reduce the amount that Texas receives. The Department of Agriculture has also got other wonderful economic development tools that it is using currently. The Go Texan brand, the Hometown Stars program supporting tourism, the Hardworking Rural Community Program. The Agriculture Department has consistently demonstrated a unique culture of helpfulness, courtesy, and service to the citizens, businesses, and communities that seek its assistance. I personally believe this is because of its personnel and the fact that they are so passionate about the mission that they have, but also believe it is because the agency is under the day-to-day supervision of an elected official who insists on nothing less. I just ask that you please support Senate Bill 1988. Creating and fully funding the Texas Rural Investment Fund is an idea that is long overdue. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Traylor. Appreciate it. Chair recognizes Bill King.